The Joe Rogan Experience has had some truly mind-blowing moments, stories of eerie predictions, terrifying encounters, and the unexplained. Today we're diving into some of the most shocking and spooky clips ever featured on the Joe Rogan Experience. My last video like this is currently doing very well, and I'm really pushing to get this channel monetized to make some of that side money doing what I love. If you enjoy this kind of content or you enjoy spooky things in general, be sure to like, subscribe, and help me hit that goal. Let's dive into it. Mushroom expert Paul Stamets had a dream so vivid, so disturbing, that it might have predicted the future. He saw thousands of dead cows lying in the sun, believing it to be a warning of nuclear war. But reality took a different turn. These cows actually died in an unnatural flash flood. Could Stamets have tapped into the multiverse? Was he seeing a parallel timeline, or is it just something we can't explain?
I've had one or two in particular multiverse experiences where time and reality has changed in a way that I cannot explain. It's so incredibly profound that I still cannot wrap my mind around it. The idea that time can be bent, that there are multiple universes occurring simultaneously in different realities. And I've had one experience in particular that is just unfathomable to me. I don't know how to explain it.
Give it a shot.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. This is a very deeply personal experience to me, but I was going to the Evergreen State College. I had the Drug Enforcement Administration license. My brother John went to Yale University. He got a graduate scholarship in neurophysiology at the University of Washington. He came out to Washington State in Seattle. I was living in Olympia, Washington. I had a cabin up in the mountains near Darrington, Washington. Then the summertime for 3 years, I set chokers. I was a logger. I love chopping wood. I love running a chainsaw. I love hard labor. I think. It gives my mind some respite to be able to think. I'm growing up in a small town in Ohio called Columbiana. My brother John is going to Yale. He comes back one day, and he gives me a book that he's using for his class, but he's on break. And he says, and I'm really fascinated. Now, John went to Mexico, Colombia, came back with great stories of eating psilocybin mushrooms, and he was my older brother. I just idolized him. And he has a book called Altered States of Consciousness. And so I said, John, can I borrow your book? He said, sure. I borrowed his book, Altered States of Consciousness, and I'm just fascinated reading it, about all these different ways of expanding your consciousness. I'm 14 years of age. And so my best friend, Ryan Snyder, says, Paul, can I borrow your book? We're hanging together all the time. And I go, yeah, but I need it back. And so he borrows my book, and he doesn't return it. A day, several days pass, a week pass, 2 weeks pass, my brother's coming back on break. And I go to Ryan, Ryan, I need my book. And Ryan just kept on avoiding answering the subject. And so I said, finally, give me my book. And Ryan goes, I can't give it to you, Paul. I said, why? He says, my dad burned it. WTF, I didn't use this phrase back then. I said, oh my God. Because of that event, it stimulated my interest in altered states of consciousness even more. So so John goes to Yale and goes to the University of Washington. I have this DEA permit. I'm at the Evergreen State College. John calls me up. And he says, Paul, I think I found some psilocybin mushrooms. John said, you're really smart. You've been collecting psilocybin cubensis in Colombia and Mexico, but they're much more complicated up here. And I said, let me ask you a few questions. I said, okay, John, do you take a spore print? And he goes, yes. And I go, is the spores purple-brown? And he goes, yes, they are purple-brown. I go, good. Okay. John, does it have a separable gelatinous pellicle? And he goes, what's that? And I go, well, break the cap. These are growing on wood chips. Break the cap and separate the cap very slowly. Do you see a little skin that's translucent? And he breaks it. And he goes, yeah, I see that skin. I said, John, they're growing on wood chips. And he goes, yes. I go, are they turning bluish? He goes, yes, they're staying really bright blue. I go, wow. I said, John, how many did you find? He goes, you would not believe it. It's a huge amount. So I jumped in my car and I drove up from Olympia to Seattle, about 60, 70 miles. I get to his house. Why all the secrecy? And the problem is, well, you'll see. And it was the end of Boat Street, and right at the University of Washington, right off of University Avenue, there's Boat Street. And we get there, and right across the street is a police substation. So we're there, and there was an eruption of this mushroom that had to be 10,000. It was about 50 feet by 30 feet, with it all been mulched with wood chips. There was an eruption that picked up, trash and, debris that picked up 6 inches. It was solid mushrooms. There are mushrooms everywhere. I've, to this day, never seen so many mushrooms in one concentrated area. We started picking mushroom, and we fill up a grocery bag or two, and we got about 8 or 10 grocery bags full of these mushrooms.
How bizarre.
So we go back to the house, and it's like, we got to dry them. So we lay out newspapers, and the whole newspapers were just covered with mushrooms. And so that night, we just, about 4 guys from Yale, all neurophysiology, all scientists, on the scientist track, and let's eat them. And so, this is not very potent. They're 1/10 the potency of cubensis, so we made smoothies. And oh my gosh, talk about the gag reflex. So we had to make these smoothies. I had to eat 50 of them in order to have a dose equivalent to what psilocybe cubensis would be. So I knew that. So we made these incredibly distasteful milkshakes, and we chugged them and we drank them. And so I go to bed, and I'm laying in bed, and full blown experience, and can barely sleep because all the colors are keeping me awake, and my mind is racing. And then I have a lucid dream, and I'm dreaming, and I wake up, and I go downstairs, and I go, I had this crazy dream. And what's your dream? And I said, I saw thousands of cattle dead, baking in the sun. I said, I think there's going to be a nuclear war. But what could kill all these cattle? The tension was really high between the Soviet Union and the United States. And they said, and they were joking with me, saying, oh, well, okay, when is it going to happen? I go, I know. I was in Olympia, and I needed to rush up to Darrington to stay in my cabin because my books were up there, my manuscript was up there. I need to save my research. So they laughed, and they said, well, when's the world going to end, Paul? And I go, well, it's not this weekend. That was like in 2 days. It's next weekend. So they wrote on the calendar, December 1st, I put it in my book, I think it's 1975, the end of the world. They wrote, Paul predicts the end of the world. Massive rains the next week. Huge amounts of snowfall. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, temperature inversion, and it flipped to 75 to 85 degrees. All the snow started to melt. All the rivers were flooding, and my little cabin was right next to this river that would swell from from morning to night. It would go up 6 feet just from the snow melt. I said, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my manuscript, all my research. I need to get up there. And so I'm watching the news, and the roads are being closed. So I had to go through Rockport, Washington, the back way in order to get back to my cabin. I get to my cabin, and the bank had eroded about 10 feet. I was only about 10, 12 feet away from the river now. My cabin was on the verge of falling into it, but I got my manuscript, I got all my books, I rescued all the material I had, but I couldn't get out of there because the roads had been closed. And so I had to wait 2 days, and the roads then opened up, and I drove out of the valley into the Snohomish Valley, and I went around the bend, and there the sun, it was a brilliant sunny day, a warm day, and there floating in the fields were hundreds and hundreds of dead cattle. I entered, I think, into the multiverse.
Whoa! Now, as a scientist, you realize when you say something like that, you open yourself up to ridicule. Do you feel hesitant to communicate these ideas?
Well, to a degree, yes. But, I'm 62 years of age, and, at one point, I just
great.
don't care. I just don't care,
Imagine being locked away for decades for a crime that you didn't commit. Nick Yarris was the first man in America to demand DNA testing to prove his innocence. After sitting for 22 years on death row, enduring unimaginable suffering, and going through quite literally hell, he was finally freed. His story is a horrifying look into the failures of the justice system and what it means to survive against all odds.
Listen, man, to say that you've had a crazy experience in this life is one of the most understated things a person could ever say. You were wrongfully committed of murder. You spent 22 years on death row before you were exonerated by DNA evidence.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Yarris, and I was, as Joe said, convicted and sentenced to die for a rape and murder I didn't commit at the age of 21. In 1981, a woman named Mrs. Craig was murdered in Delaware. I had never met the woman. I was in prison on unrelated charges, and I stupidly made up a story to try and get out of those charges. The police soon realized that I was a liar, and they fabricated the charges around me then. And Linda Mae Craig was leaving her job at 4:05 p.m. on December 15th, 1981. She's going home. She gets abducted. I don't know any of this, but I tried in desperation to get out of a lie that this officer put on me. I got pulled over in a stolen car. The cop beats me up. He puts charges on me. I'm facing life imprisonment, and I'm a junkie. All of my life, I was destroyed by what happened to me at the age of 7. I had my head beaten in by a man with a rock in his hand after he sexually assaulted me. And I did all the stupid things that people can do in the aftermath. I kept it a secret. I let it foster all the anger in me. I became very aggressive as a child, and I ended up in trouble all the time. When I was in prison on these unrelated charges to the murder, I stupidly fell into that mindset of desperation of trying to get out of it. So the police put a prisoner in the cell next to me. He said I confessed to him. I was given a 3-day trial. I was sentenced to death and put on death row. And then stupidly, I escaped from prison in 1985 and ended up on the FBI's most wanted list. I was being transported to court, and the sheriffs were being cool with me at first. They were talking about what was going on in Philly. They were two nice guys, like 68, 67. And we drove 5 hours from one of the hardest prisons in America called Huntington. And I left there after spending 2 years of my first 2 years in silence. So if you opened your mouth, they would come in and beat your head in. So I was eager to go to court. And it was the coldest day of 1985, February 15th. We stopped at a gas station in Exton, Pennsylvania. And as I got out of the car, the officer driving pulled past the cubicles, and I went in and started peeing. And the officer's holding the door for me, and my eyeglasses start fogging up. You go from the freezing cold to the warm to the cold, your eyeglasses. So all I know is I turn around and I come out, and he has the door like that, and I put my head down, go under his arm, and I turn left and go back to the car, and the dude smoking a cigarette doesn't know that his partner went into the cubicle to piss. And as I'm running back to the dude, he pulls his pistol out and point blank shoots at me, Joe, like pow. And as it went past my face, I was like, oh shit. I hit the ground. I ran, and he's following me with the gun. I could feel it like I was waiting for him to blast me, you know.
Why did he shoot at you?
Because he thought I overpowered his partner. He doesn't know. His testimony at trial was, I turn around, Nick's running at me, my partner's down or gone. I pulled my gun and he runs, and I wasn't going to let a death row prisoner run, so I tried to stop him. I shot. So I run around the corner, I hit the ground, I ripped all the skin off my hands. I run around the corner and I fly towards this restaurant, and there's all these people innocently eating dinner. And I'm running right towards the plate glass window because he ain't going to blast me, you know? And I ran down to a gas station. I tried to steal a car. That didn't work. Then I ran and I hid behind the car I just escaped from. And I was laying in the weeds behind the gas station about 50 yards from them while they were screaming who was the bigger idiot for letting this happen. And I was thinking, oh my God, like, what am I doing? How do I just jump up and say, wait a minute, it was a mistake? You know, they already tried to shoot me in the face. Right. So I go hide behind the police station, and next 4 hours, oh my God, I'm being chased by a helicopter. And he pins me and he chases me. And I was so fit that I ran for 4 hours through the woods without caring what the branches did to my face or nothing, man. I blew out both quads. I did my hamstrings. I ripped my feet open. I ran so hard in terror that I didn't care, man. And I got away. And I made it all the way to Florida, and I was going to leave the country and all this, and I said, I got to go back.
How did you get to Florida?
I stole a dude's wallet in New York, and I got on an airplane. I was sitting there. I was so angry. I was going to kill myself. I was on... I'll never forget this day. I didn't want my folks to see me in prison handcuffs no more, you know? So I was going to buy a raft, and I was going to go out in the ocean, and I was going to have one last party with all the foods that I loved. Then I was going to stab the raft, wait for the sharks after I cut my wrists, you know? And then I was going to cap myself and go. Then I said, no, I'm going back. So I turned myself back in. They put me on death row in Florida. And I went back and I faced it, you know? So they beat me for 4 minutes, man. They broke my face, broke my back, crushed me, man, tortured me. And I thought, I'm gonna get you back. You know, for all the days you made me go in a cage and beat some other prisoner while you stood there with a club laughing at me, I'm gonna get you back. I'm gonna make sure I start being a loving person again. So I'm sitting there in 1985, 1986 with 105 years plus the death penalty. And I decided, fuck this, I'm gonna be a nice guy. So I started to learn. I suffer from aphasia. I had my head beaten in with a rock. So
What is aphasia?
aphasia can be identified simply in people who have stuttering disorder. Their brain and their vernacular abilities are distorted by a disruption in their brain. Either their brain is functioning too fast or their mouth is functioning too fast, or there's a combination of a misfiring. And aphasia can be through trauma or through genetics. And aphasia affected my life so much as a young person, I never had the respect to listen to people because I couldn't function, I couldn't articulate, I couldn't speak. When I was at trial, people spoke words that I didn't understand. And it frustrated me. And when I tried to speak and I'd stutter, people would be like, duh, 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 come on, retard, what do you got to say? After that beating, where they beat me for 4 minutes and they broke my face, I began practicing speaking to myself. Every day, I learned new words, and I taught myself how to correctly articulate that word into a sentence beautifully for my own self, in my cell, every day. And then I became very, very good at writing. I began helping other prisoners. I became the most dangerous prisoner that they held because I cared about other men. I wrote to their mothers. I wrote letters to their lawyers. I gave up opportunities for people to write books about me so I could help another innocent man. I did all those things because that's how I got back at them for what they did to me. So, in 1988, I'm sitting in my cell and I read about DNA. And I knew right then I could prove my innocence. So I was the first man in America in February of 1988 to ask for DNA testing to prove my innocence. And they threw away all the autopsy material. And when I discovered new evidence, they destroyed that. And this woman who came to meet me and start visiting me fell in love with me, and she believed in me. So she stood by me and told me that she would be with me either to the gallows walk or to the moment I proved my innocence. And for 9 years, she stood by me, you know. And finally, we found some evidence that was testable in 1995.
What was the evidence?
It was sperm from a rape, and it was being sent out here to California to Dr. Edward Blake, and it broke open in transport and spilled. So, Jackie left me. I had nothing left, and then they put me in a special unit, and it started torturing me. I keep this part quiet. I never told the story. It would ruin what happened in Fear of 13 that's now out on Netflix. But they finally closed down the old prison I was in for 12 years, where the average rate of survival was only 5. And I was one of the hardest dudes there, and I made it. They closed the prison down, and they opened up Greene County Supermax. And the courts ordered that every prisoner in Pennsylvania be allowed out of their cell for 8 hours. The administration looked at each other and said, fuck that, not the crazy cannibals and not the serial killers. Not the dudes that have been assaulting and raping each other. So they picked 48 of us out, and they put us in Pittsburgh in a special penitentiary setting in which we were in a sealed unit. And they put all these guards in there that weren't allowed to touch other prisoners because they were so violent, and told them we're giving you the craziest of the crazy. You know Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lamb was a real man, right? His name was Gary Heidnick. He abducted black women in Philadelphia and put them in a pit under his house and fed one of them to the other survivors because he was building a master race. He was my neighbor, man. So they started torturing us and doing all this psychological crazy to us where they were feeding us to each other like wolves. So I kept it all quiet until this year when, once again, misfortune fell in my life and I released Monsters and Madmen, the new book that I was going to give you today. But it's been so hard to come back from these moments, Joe. It's just like, I look at what they did to me and how I went to that moment where the DNA is gone. Jackie leaves me. And so I find out I'm dying from hepatitis C that they did when they infected me of it when they broke my teeth, when they beat me. So I asked to be executed. I said, I studied all the world's religions. I read over 9,000 books. I did everything in piety my mother asked me to do while I was in prison. I don't want to die like Dale Carter did, with the guards coming to his cell and taunting him, you know, teasing him, and listen to a man scream in agony because the bile in his belly is killing him. So I wrote to the courts and I asked to be executed. I said, F it, man. I want to die as a man I love who can respect himself. The court intervened and ordered the DNA testing that was going to be done on the evidence expelled. In July of 2003, the DNA test come back and they proved me innocent.
How did so the evidence spilled and they just captured it once it spilled?
It was in a box with all this evidence. Dr. Edward Blake, who did the O.J. Simpson trial DNA, said that there would be challenges to it if he did the DNA in 1999, 1998. In 2003, they had advanced mitochondrial DNA separation so well that he felt confident in his results. Federal court got involved and said, look, I don't want to have this man executed. I want the DNA done. So they did that, and it was amazing that on the day that I called the lawyers, they revealed the truth to me. I called his lawyer and I'm like, what's up? He goes, Nick, we got DNA from 3 separate sources that prove you're innocent. And I said, that's amazing, Mike. I'm really grateful. He goes, you know, we used to tell people you're crazy, that we never believed in you. I'm really sorry for that. I'm like, man, really? You want to take away my joy now, man? So I was really downcast that the day I called my mother. My brother Mikey was having a seizure at her feet because he was an alcoholic after he fell off a roof, and he died shortly after. So it just went crazy from there. They take me off death row and they put me in a psychological cell, and they tell me they can't trust me, that no human being who has had done to them what we've done to you cannot be angry, that if we open this door up and we let you out, you're going to get us. So we're going to leave you until the day they let you out. We're going to leave you in this cell because we don't trust you not to kill us for what we did to you.
What did they do to you?
They used to have a thing called Gladiator Day. So the lieutenant would be off on a Sunday, and the guards who started to come from the Philadelphia area were black, and they didn't like the guards up in the hillbillies beating on black prisoners. So a weird thing happened where this lieutenant came up with an idea, well, look, let's let the prisoners get this frustration out of you guys by you pick out the biggest guy and you pick out this guy. So one day I'm sitting there minding my own business, and they open up my cell and there's 4 of them with clubs. You're up. So I gotta go in the cage and I gotta go and hurt somebody while they stand outside, and if you don't fight, they're gonna come in and they're gonna beat you worse than you can beat a man or get beaten by one man.
Musician and artist David Choe has traveled across America the hard way, by hitchhiking, and the stories he's collected along the way are pure nightmare fuel. From encounters with would-be murderers to people confessing dark and disturbing thoughts, Choe's experiences prove that you never really know who's behind the wheel.
If you're not seen and you're not heard and we're seen as non-threatening, I can go anywhere. I can go anywhere and people open up to me. I've been to every fucking state in America. I might be the most American person. Like, I've been to every fucking state. I've hitchhiked from the time I was 15 to every fucking state, every country. Would a black guy be able to do that? Would a white guy be able to do that? When people see, oh, that guy's Chinese, he's like Jackie Chan, or he's whatever they think, they don't think that I'm gonna do anything or say anything or I'm gonna pose any threat. So they just open up and they say the most. When I started hitchhiking, people said, no one's gonna pick you up, right? Like 60s, 70s, everyone hitchhiked, and then something weird happened in the 80s where like, you're gonna get raped, kidnapped, murdered, But I go, I don't think so. I think if I put my thumb out and ask for help, someone's gonna give it to me. And with that, I got to see the world for free. I got to go everywhere. And what happened was I would sit shotgun and I'm getting these free rides, and 2 things would happen. Either the driver has a long drive and they want someone to talk to, or they want me to talk to them. Something would happen, and like, I'm in the car right now with a complete stranger. Anything could happen. And the first hour is always small talk. How long you been on the road? What you do? It's all that kind of stuff. Something switches when they know the ride's I'm about to get out or whatever. I'm never gonna see this guy again. So now we've been talking about news, sports, and weather for an hour. Last 10 minutes, I my sister when I was 12.
Whoa.
Everything comes out. So I've heard Think about how many rides I've hitchhiked.
How old was he? He was 12. How old was his sister?
I don't know. It was 8. I mean, everything. Drugs, incest. You know, I killed somebody. Like, murder.
A guy told you?
Murder confessions.
Really?
I've heard the most insane.
Hold one at a time.
I don't know if I should retell it.
You definitely should be.
A guy confessed to me that he was thinking of raping me when I stayed at his house.
Oh, Jesus. You
Like-
stayed at his house? You didn't just hitchhike, you hitch-housed?
I was in the deep south. It was like I was trying to hitchhike from LA to New York City. I was with my friend Brian. Same thing. No one's gonna pick up two dudes. And John Wayne picks us up, cowboy guy, 10-gallon hat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you boys look, hot out there. Get in the car. And he's telling us about shrimp po' boys, and he works on a offshore oil rig, and it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and it's just 2 weeks off right now. He's like, "Where are you guys headed?" And we're like, "We're just trying to get to New York." New York? What you want to go there for? A bunch of out there. I don't know. We want to check it out. You guys want to stay at my house tonight? Like, this guy looks like grandpa. Just cowboy boots, cowboy hat, big gut. Like, he's a dude.
Right.
Yeah, I'm young. I'm 17 or 18 at this time. We get to his house in this is what I'm talking about. It's a tiny town in Louisiana, deep south.
Okay.
Like, we get in his house, Die Hard movie collection, Rambo movie collection, shotguns, and
lube.
Just a dude, just a man's man. And he has in his part-time job is an anesthesiologist.
Part-time anesthesiologist.
Part-time and then part-time offshore oil rig. This is summertime, deep south, covered with like grease and mosquitoes, living outside on the road, hitchhiking. He's like, "You guys want to take a shower?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah." I'm the first one in the shower, and then I come out, I got the towel wrapped on. He's like, he made us like a frozen pizza or something, and there's a protest on the television. It's Sanford. This is 1993 or 94. There's a protest of something with gay people in San Francisco, and he's watching it. He's like, I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'm queer. You never see me out there protesting." And I'm like, "Oh." And then my friend Brian, who's covered in grease and dirt, he hasn't showered yet. And I'm like, "Oh shit!" And I started getting my clothes on, and it's one thing to be gay, and then it's one thing to be picked up by like a
big gay guy with a cowboy hat who takes you to his house.
So and here's the thing. I don't want to discourage people from hitchhiking. This is one weird incident that's happened in like 15 years of hitchhiking. So he's like, hey Brian, it's your turn. Why don't you take a shower? No, I'm okay. I'm all right. You're filthy. Why don't you get in there and take a shower? He's like, no, I'm all right. I'm okay. And I go, what do we do? Like, do a little powwow in the corner. He's like, he's old. We can take him if he tries anything. We're tired. We were so tired. He looks like he was like falling asleep on his couch. He's gonna go to sleep soon. Let's just stay the night. It's air conditioned in here, and then let's leave first thing in the morning before he wakes up. I'm like, okay, let's just do it. All right, boys, I'm gonna turn in. I'm like, yes. So we take the couch, and I go, let's sleep in a formation, and let's take turns. We should have just left. You go, you stay up for an hour, and then wake me up. I'll stay up for an hour. And then we'll leave crack of dawn. I had a pocket knife, so I slept like this. I took the knife and I put the thing like this, and I slept like that, and I stayed up for the first hour, and I see him walking around his room. The lights are on, and I'm like, this guy's not going to sleep. Midnight, 1 a.m. I'm like, what the why won't this guy go to sleep?
Putting his masks on. So
I nudge Brian. I go, hey, it's your turn. I got him. I'm gonna pass out. He's out cold. I'm like, dude, man. I'm too tired, and I go, okay, I'm just gonna stay up the whole night. So I'm up. I'm like, guys are closing. Bring him back up again, gripping the knife, and then sometime around 5:30 in the morning or something, my eyes are closed, but when you feel someone.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes out of his room, and he's standing there, and I could see, and then I go, oh, and then I grip the knife, and I go, this is it. It's gonna happen right now. He just leaves. He goes out the door, and I go, oh, like, and then I wake up Brian. I go, Brian, let's get the out of here. He's like, what's going on? He's like, dude, he just left. He's like, okay, I'm gonna take a shower then. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, if he went to the store or something, like he's not gonna
get some duct
Yeah,
tape.
he's not gonna be back for. I'll jump in and jump. I go, dude, let's just go right now. Like he was, I don't know if he was jerking off or what. Like he was. I had my eyes closed, but he was standing right there, and he's like, I'll be quick. So he runs in, takes a fast shower. We get our clothes on, and like just as we're walking out, he's like, hey, he like pulls in. You guys leaving without saying bye? I just went to the market to get some eggs for breakfast, and I'm like, oh. Fuck, dude. So I'm like, I have the knife in my hand the whole time. I go, like, it's that thing where I'm a people pleaser, you know, like I'll even put my own life at risk to, like, this guy went to the store and got eggs for me, you know, like, yeah, sure, we'll have some eggs. So we go in, and the guy starts talking about his wife and how he works on this offshore oil rig with like a younger dude. It's just two guys running this whole oil rig. The other guy just talks about how much he hates gay people the whole time, not knowing that this guy is. And then he just like all the other times I've been picked up, he starts opening up about how he was married, he has a bunch of children, and then he figured out he was gay. I could see it. He knows we're on our way out. He's never gonna see us. Let's just it on. You boys look so cute on the side of the road there last night. And it's like, I was so, like, I'm so lonely. I don't get to, you know, you don't know what it's like to be a queer guy in the deep south. Man, when I came out this morning and I saw you guys sleeping together, you guys on the couch, you look so beautiful and perfect. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, dude. And then he says, I thought about just, you know, if you guys wouldn't mind if I just touched you a little bit. And I'm like, what the f? And, you know, we've once again, I froze. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, so and so I said, yeah, we're gonna leave now. So we just f***ing booked it, and then all of his neighbors were black. Like he lived like in a black neighborhood, and like the houses are on stilts because of the swampland and whatever. And I don't know if he's done this before, but as we ran out, like I heard like the kids laughing, and they're like, "Oh, Tom, they're trying to do it again," and I'm like, "Oh, like this isn't the first time." Like.
Duncan Trussell believes magic is real, but not in the way you might think. He breaks down ritual magic, explaining that it could all be hiding in plain sight. Even something as ordinary as a church service could be magic. Could ancient text, even the Bible itself, be powerful grimoires with esoteric knowledge? Let's see what Duncan says.
A lot of got kind of wiped out by, superstition. So witchcraft, as we understand it now because of Hollywood, is like, you know, ladies riding around on brooms and it just used to be midwifery. It used to be like healing women who would like deliver babies and stuff. But these were all connected to, they all had pagan roots. And so essentially you can follow back this branch of data that some people say started in Sumeria or Egypt, meditating, ways of connecting with the universe that are ritualistic in nature but seem mysterious to us, because even though, like, if you want to see what it looks like, just look at a Catholic mass. You're looking at a ceremony. It's theurgy, I guess you'd call it. That is a magical ceremony where bread gets converted into the flesh of a god that you eat. So they're all wearing robes, they're burning incense. So that is magic. That's what ceremonial magic looks like. It's non-different from ceremonial magic. Someone in the Catholic Church might tell you, this isn't magic, that's magic. You're connecting with a divine intelligence. You're hoping from your connection with the divine intelligence to produce some change in your own psychology, in your own life, and maybe create good fortune or whatever it is you're praying for, healing, whatever it may be. That's magic. So magic is that, and that I'm not saying the Catholicism would necessarily be considered a branch of magic, but I mean, one of the things he said in this interview is like, if the Bible is one of the most powerful magical grimoires there is, I mean, you read that if you really look in it, there's all kinds of bizarre stuff that doesn't seem to make it onto Christian radio. Well, like when in the book of Genesis, why do they refer to themselves as a plurality? When God's talking, it's not like, when they're saying like, why do we throw Adam and Eve out of the garden? It's if we don't do something about this, they will become like us. There's a plurality that's being mentioned there. And so what is that plurality? So throughout the Bible, there's mentions of angels. The book of Ezekiel, the famous one that ufologists go to.
Yeah.
is there's all these contacts with angels, hyperdimensional beings that have some data set they want to bring to the world. Quite often, depending on what book you're in, it's some terrifying prophecy about the end of the world that's coming. But sometimes it's, some message of hope or some message of healing. So you could say magic is a non-Christian oriented method for connecting with those various entities using ritual. That's one branch of it. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, these beings exist or don't exist, but you could say, if you wanted to get psychological, you could say we have buried inside of us archetypes, bits of the collective that are buried deep inside of us, and that there are ways to connect to these little fragments of the collective mind. And, many people have their own method for doing that. One of the methods to do that might be doing a ritual. And for a moment, allowing yourself to imagine that you're trying to talk to an extra-dimensional being. Aleister Crowley famously did one of these rituals and contacted I can't remember what the being was called, but it looks like a gray alien. This is before people were talking about gray aliens. He drew it. There's a drawing of it, yeah, and it looks like a gray alien.
What year was this?
It's like the 1800s.
Wow, look at that drawing by Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
That does look like a gray alien.
Yeah, man. And
that's what we're going to look like, man. Let's cut it,
yeah.
Right? That's what we're going to look like. Right? When you see people that are hairy and brutish, we think of them as being like closer to prehistoric man, right?
Yeah.
When you see a guy covered in hair, he looks more like a beast.
Yeah.
And when we see people that are thinner and more slender, they become more a gentle version of people. And we associate that oftentimes with intelligence. We associate, right? We all do that. When you see some super genius guy, usually they're frail.
Right.
And occasionally they're badasses, but there's a lot of those super genius guys that couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag.
Right.
Well, Hawking's the ultimate example because his body literally failed him while he was coming up with his greatest discoveries.
Yeah.
So this is our future. We're
That's
gonna have
right.
big heads. They're gonna CRISPR your way into a head that lets you live in any dimension you want at any time.
Yeah.
You transport yourself from one planet to the other. Imagine what we've done with our stupid monkey brains. Now imagine it was 150% larger, 150% more brain, and then incorporated all sorts of electronics that let you interface with space-time around you and all kinds of other wacky ways of communicating we couldn't even possibly imagine now, just like people from the 1800s couldn't have ever possibly imagined cell phones.
Right. And this is the idea, is like, okay, we're going to go there. And then when we get there, the way we understand space-time is going to be different than the way we understand it now.
Yeah.
So what that means is, theoretically, you could connect or communicate with a being that is outside of space-time, which is a future version of us, using various methods. DMT being one of the big ones on the planet right now, but also using other methods that are a little bit more precise. Because with DMT, it's kind of like you're not really putting in GPS coordinates necessarily. Some people do it with intention, like a shaman will do it with intention and can Anyway, maybe you can connect through time and space to these things that are already here. Like our understanding of time and space, we're locked in, man. But so magic is ridiculous on one level, as it absolutely sounds and is on one level. On another level is at the very least a creative technique so that you can sort of summon a dream state while you're awake with the intent of causing some change in the world around you using, for a lot of people, what would be considered a non-standard way.
Well, just in terms of your perception of how you view the world, you can alter that pretty radically. I mean, from someone who has an amazingly positive perception versus someone who has an amazingly negative perception, you look at the results.
Right.
Overwhelming benefit of being a positive person.
Overwhelming.
There's something to thoughts and ideas that propel you in a good way, and for having a good architecture, for having a good philosophy, having a good operating manual for how you view the world and how you act and behave. Part of that's you getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what that is. You're enforcing your ability to dictate the positive aspects of your future. You're deciding to take action. You're
Yeah, man.
strengthening your bond with the way you interface with current reality.
And I was doing it, not
What happened?
ritualistically.
Why did it stop?
What the fuck? Oh, Christmas. God
Listen,
damn it.
man, if you want to meet me here, I'll meet you here. We could do some 5 a.m. sessions.
I'd love that, man.
do it.
I mean, yeah, I would love that.
Let's do it. I'm 100% down.
Now we're entering full conspiracy mode. Sam Tripoli dives into Operation Highjump, Nazis, UFOs, and the eerie mysteries of Antarctica. Admiral Byrd allegedly met with extraterrestrial crafts in one of the wildest stories ever told on the Joe Rogan Experience. And it just gets crazier from here.
Some people are like, what's going on with Antarctica? Have you heard this? Where they sent Admiral Byrd up?
What's going on in Antarctica?
Yeah, so the U.S. government's like, something's going on with Antarctica. There's some activity up there. We want to find out what's going on. So they send this cat named Admiral Byrd up to investigate with a giant fleet, just a fleet to go bang, bro. You know?
When was this?
Yeah, it was
60s?
like right around either around World War II or right after it. And so they sent Admiral Byrd up to go find out. And according to his journal that they found much later, basically met with UFOs, Nazi UFOs.
What?
Yes.
Nazi UFOs.
The Nazis
The Nazis had a flying saucer.
had made a deal basically working with
What?
You've never heard this?
No.
It's the greatest story ever, bro. It's the greatest
so
story.
the Nazis made a deal with the aliens?
Yes.
Holy
For
shit.
technology, and the deal was they were going to work together, okay? So basically the aliens go down and Klaus Schwab's dad go down and meet with Eisenhower. It's going to be like, we could either do it one way or the other way. We could do it nice or we can do it the wrong way. And that's where they say Eisenhower made a deal with these aliens. They could kidnap people and do experiments, but they couldn't just do it anywhere. They had specific places, which were our national forest.
You're making this
No.
as if this is like a story that is commonplace.
Well, for my people, it is.
Jamie, count me out here. Have you heard the
Honestly,
story?
brand new.
You've never heard of this? You've never heard of Operation Highjump, bro?
I feel like I've heard of that, but I haven't, not in this context.
This sounds
Let me see
amazing.
if I
Please
looked
keep
up that
going.
way.
And
So,
this is where the missing 411 come from.
The missing information? What missing information?
No, the missing 411.
What do you mean by that?
Which is all these people have mysteriously disappeared in force. And they don't know
you're not
how.
talking about the missing 411 like information.
No.
You're talking- so missing 411 is the number of people that have been abducted?
Yeah, and it's all really weird because they all have a lot of similar characteristics, like German background, highly intelligent, and I don't know how weird you want to get, bro.
I
but-
want to get weird.
Okay, bro. They think this might be some time traveling Nazi shit, bro. I know you're gonna think I'm crazy, but it's true, dude. That's what they believe, and they made
Who
a
is
deal.
These they folk?
The conspiracy people.
Are they united on?
No, there's a whole different. There's a lot of
Many
warring
factions.
clans, bro. There's a lot of warring clans, dude.
But that one
How
is,
deep do you want to go?
What is interesting is how advanced the engineering of the Germans was. You know, it's really interesting when you think about car manufacturers like Audi and Volkswagen, Mercedes. It's all out of BMW.
100%. And then we were
And Audi made Hitler a car.
Yeah.
Hitler had a race car. an
That was
Audi race
never
car.
part of their marketing plan, though.
Yeah,
That would
they-
have been a crazy campaign.
What does it say there?
So 1939, BMW 801D
Piston radial aircraft engine, and national origin is Germany. In that year, they made World War II planes. They made engines for World War II planes. So that's just wild, man.
I mean, IBM was making stuff for these camps, too, dude. It's crazy.
IBM?
Yeah. Like,
They had
We've
computers?
talked about that before.
yeah.
Right, what was that?
There's a book. It was the precursor to actual computers. It was like a filing system to keep track of stuff.
Yeah, of who was where and what into these
Oh,
camps.
that's right. I'm remembering this.
And then oh yeah, man, it gets super
And so
weird.
that,
but the
it
place,
wasn't called IBM, right? Was it called something else?
I think
it was IBM.
book. Yeah, the book is called IBM and the Holocaust: A Strategic Alliance Between Nazi
I
Germany.
mean, you ain't fucking around with that
Powerful
title, huh?
That title is rough.
Yeah, dude. You're like,
If you're IBM,
straight
you
to
gotta
the
be like,
point.
do we do that? Did we really do this?
I don't
The
remember
strategic alliance between Nazi Germany and America's most powerful corporation expanded.
So the area of Antarctica they went to was New Schwabenland.
New Schwabenland. Do you think that's why he dresses with the space
100%, bro.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun. So they're all in contact with the aliens.
I think, well, dude, I mean, it gets into. See, a lot of people think this is about power and money. It's spiritual war, dude. These people got all the money and all the power. They got more than they could ever want.
I think they want complete control.
But that gets into spirituality, not just complete control, but lowering your vibration and jacking your loosh, your
But
spirit energy.
You think they're doing that consciously, or do you think they're doing it like they're chasing the economics, and along the way it actually becomes a spiritual battle because everything is a spiritual battle?
I think it's done purposely. I think they're
evil.
I think they're at low. There's low frequency stuff going on, and they've made deals with people and things.
That was very ambiguous, but I understand where you're going with it.
Okay, I mean, if you want me, I just don't want to get too weird too fast, bro. But
Too fast?
I'm like,
We just opened up. We're good.
I 100% believe this is spiritual war, and that these people are working with dark entities, and that's what this is all about.
If there was like an alien race that came here from another planet and gave just a random group of people technology, gave them an understanding of things and how to do things, how much of a record do you think they would keep of that? Wouldn't that be something that people would want to talk about?
Yeah, but that's the beauty of the internet, that we're now able to do that. We could never do that before.
So you think that's what this story is about? That the story is about they went there and they met with aliens and the aliens gave them information?
I mean, Hitler was really into the occult.
Yeah,
like he would send people all over the place.
No, he had a lot of bad ideas.
Yeah, he had a lot of bad ideas. But see, the occult has a negative connotation to it. Not everything involved with the occult is negative. What the occult really means is secret.
Secret.
So there's not as much
That's
around.
what the word means?
Yeah, it's basically it means like it's hidden.
I always associate it with people that believe in silly shit. When someone starts talking about the occult, I'm always like, how do you feel about ghosts? You know, how do you feel about, like, when people start talking about like dark magic, I'm like,
From eerie dreams to death row horrors and alien conspiracies to the occult, these are just a few of the most shocking moments from the Joe Rogan Experience. What clip creeped you out the most? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. Thank you.